Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I should post it now.
Okay. Eventful Shabbos. Okay, so I want to, before we start the halachas of Hadlokas Neiros, I would like to spend the time tonight. I'm not sure if we'll get to Hadlokas Neiros tonight. I want to speak a little bit, just a drop about Zmanim. It's a confusing topic. And a little bit about Tosfos Shabbos also. Okay, we'll do each topic. We'll try to keep it as clear as possible, as always. Okay, so, we start Shabbos, about an hour before we end Shabbos. So that seems to be an inconsistency. When does the day start? So I just want to explain what we're doing with Zmanim and what it means to do Reb Moshe and 72 and just to have some basic understanding of it. It just helps when shilas come up. It helps to know how to ask a shaila to understand what we're doing with Zmanim. So what's going on is as follows. There are, in the Zmanim, there's daytime, and then there's Bein Hashmashos, which is in between time, between the suns, meaning the sun and the moon, and then there's Tzeis HaKrechavim, when the stars come out. And the Bein Hashmashos, the Safek time, obviously we always have to be chayshish for whichever way is going to be more stringent. So on Erev Shabbos, we have to start Shabbos at the beginning of Bein Hashmashos, because Bein Hashmashos might be Shabbos. And at the end of Shabbos, we have to end Shabbos in the end of Bein Hashmashos, because Bein Hashmashos might be Shabbos, right? So that explains a little bit of a difference between Friday and Shabbos. That's that buffer zone. But, and this is important to understand, the buffer zone is not really as long as we think it is. Because the reality is that there are two basic, huge shitas in the Rishonim. One of them is called the shita of the Ge'onim, and one is called the shita of Rabbeinu Tam. Both shitas hold that Bein Hashmashos is 13 and a half minutes long. Both shitas hold that way. But the Ge'onim hold that Bein Hashmashos begins with what we call Shkia, which is around 4:22 now, and ends 13 and a half minutes later, and that's Tzeis HaKrechavim. That's the Ge'onim's shita. So if 4:22 was Shkia, so 4:36, something around 4:36 would be Tzeis HaKrechavim. That's a very short Bein Hashmashos, and then would be Vadai, night. So that means that if you held like the Ge'onim, at 4:36 today, Shabbos was over. Imagine that.
That's all over the world? No.
Yeah, the differences in different countries I'll talk about soon. But let's just
Share of time.
What?
Where the Ge'onim lives is not.
Yeah, the Ge'onim we're talking about, Eretz Yisrael. You're not wrong to bring up where it is in the world, but let's just keep it simple for.
Because Shkia happens way quicker in the center.
I know. That's why you're saying that. I get it. I'm asking you not to say that now, okay? Because if I start going into that now, we'll never get to Rabbeinu Tam, and we will not have any clarity. So the Ge'onim hold that Shkia is the beginning of Bein Hashmashos. 13.5 minutes later is Tzeis HaKrechavim. So that means that those that went with the shitas of the Ge'onim in Europe would be making Havdalah, lighting a fire at 4:36 today.
Wow.
Okay? That was a shita. There were many cities in Europe that did that. That they held like the Ge'onim, and Shabbos started by Shkia, and Shabbos ended the next day, 13 and a half minutes after Shkia. That is the shita of the Ge'onim. The shita of Rabbeinu Tam is that Tzeis HaKrechavim is not, it all has to do with the fact that a mil is a certain amount of distance. Not a mile, even though it sounds like the word mile, but it's a certain amount of distance. And Chazal estimated that it takes 18 minutes to walk a mil. So the Ge'onim hold that Tzeis HaKrechavim comes 3/4 of a mil, meaning 13 and a half minutes, because 3/4 of 18 is 13 and a half. So 13 and a half minutes after Shkia. Rabbeinu Tam says, no. Tzeis HaKachavim is not 3/4 of a mil after Shkia. It's 4 mil after Shkia. If a mil is 18 minutes, what's 18 times 4? What? 72. Oh, you've heard that number before, right? That's the number of 72. Rabbeinu Tam says it's based on different Gemaras. It's very complicated to reconcile all the Gemaras. So Rabbeinu Tam says that Tzeis HaKachavim is 72 minutes after Shkia. When is Bein HaShmashos? Bein HaShmashos is 58 and a half minutes after Shkia. Because Bein HaShmashos is only 13 and a half minutes.
So what does he hold that time at? The time from Shkia till Ben HaShmashos? What is that time?
It's daytime.
So what does Shkia mean?
So that means that according to Rabbeinu Tam, Rabbeinu Tam holds of a later Shkia. The hour early Shkia, he's not good.
So Shabbos didn't start in
So in Rabbeinu Tam's house, that means that at 4:22 was
our Shkia?
was our Shkia. So Shabbos didn't start until about 5:24. Be'erach.
Over an hour later.
Right. No, it's 58 minutes. It's just under an hour later.
So 5:20.
Yeah.
Bein HaShmashos is always the same size.
And then starts Bein HaShmashos, and then 13 and a half minutes later is the end. So according to Rabbeinu Tam, Shabbos started at 5:20 yesterday, and Shabbos was over at 72 today. Another 13 and a half minutes after that. And those were two separate shitas in Klal Yisrael. Some cities did this way, and some cities did that way. It's a very dramatic difference. Some cities started Shabbos early and then ended a few minutes after that. And some cities started Shabbos late and ended a few minutes after that. So everyone had this little window of Bein HaShmashos that you had to be chayshish for on both days, but it wasn't a huge window like it is today. Okay? Because you had the shita of the Ga'ainim, and the cities with the Ga'ainim were the Rabbanim. That's what they paskin. Then you had the shitas of Rabbeinu Tam. And where Rabbeinu Tam, who's one of the Balei Tosfos from France, where they lived, they did like Rabbeinu Tam.
Wow.
Okay? And then Gullus happened. And we started to get a little mixed and matched, especially in America, where like the Hasidish communities, let's say, from what I remember, would do like, some of them would do like the Ga'ainim. So you can imagine that we're sitting here. Imagine we would be sitting here eating Shal Shudas in Shul and singing Yedid Nefesh, and the Hasidim who are here in the summer would be driving around, about 10 minutes after Mincha is over, not 10 minutes, but like a half hour after Mincha is over. We couldn't, it was too disparate, it was too crazy. So as a tzibur, as a broad tzibur of the entire Klal Yisrael, the halacha was paskened that we are chayshesh for both the Ga'ainim and Rabbeinu Tam. So that means that we start with the earliest Zman of the Ga'ainim, and we end with the latest Zman of Rabbeinu Tam. Okay?
Like their Shabbos used to be like 24 hours. Exactly.
And so was ours.
But ours is really like
25.
Right, because of that.
Because
Exactly.
they added on.
Isn't that fascinating?
But is that why people are like not so makbid on
No.
exactly by Shkia? Because they have what to rely on from reading?
Oh, that could be.
Not everyone holds 72 minutes.
Oh, we'll get to that as well. That's what Mrs. Hollander is waiting for. We will get to that. She's being very good.
And
There's also, I think I've also heard sometimes when people have to do malacha, like urgent, and maybe it's not super life-saving, but like,
We'll get to
not
that as
push
well.
it, like, if
Well,
they
we wouldn't
it,
push
then-
this. Let's do one thing at a time here.
Okay.
Trust me, I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just that this type of thing, it starts swimming in your
technical.
brain, and then you like have it and have it and have it, and you're like, I don't have it anymore.
it's very,
So
very
I just, if I was teaching this to an 11th grade, it would be havoc in the room right now. Okay? So
You can
So-
imagine what my 11th grade halacha teachers were like.
yeah.
Every time I see them till this day, I'm grateful.
So they did something right because you organized another halacha shir. So again, just to keep it clear, according to the Ga'ainim, Bein HaShmashos starts at our Shkia and ends 13 and a half minutes later. According to Rabbeinu Tam, Bein HaShmashos starts 58 and a half minutes after our Shkia, almost an hour after our Shkia, and ends 13 and a half minutes later. We do both. So that means that we accept Shabbos at the early Shkia, at our Shkia, but we don't end Shabbos until the later Tzeis HaKechavim, which for now we're going to call 72. Okay, that's where we were.
I don't know if I asked the same question this is Dastin, but again, for Rabbeinu Tam, from Shkia till Bein Hashmashas, what was that considered?
Nothing. That was nothing. There were different shkias regarding different halachas. It was daytime. It wasn't. Yeah, people were still driving around. So you could have one tzibur in Klal Yisrael, not because people made early Shabbos. Okay, in the winter you could have.
Shkia was not the beginning of Shabbos.
Right, you could have a tzibur in Klal Yisrael that are home making kiddush, and the frum guy comes to the door with his car and says, "Can I offer anyone a ride?" Okay, that was what could have been.
It's not shocking because we do have early Shabbos in the summer.
Right, we have an image of that. Yeah, we do have an image of that.
Their Hilchos were much more separate.
Right, for sure.
Far from one to the next.
Right. They weren't.
But if somebody was coming with their
they
wagon
weren't driving
and their horse from another town, and they got there when it was already Shabbos in the other town.
Right, it was rare. It was very, very rare because mostly countries did certain ways, not just towns. But anyway, in America and now all over the world, we are makbid like both shitas. There's no frum Jew that doesn't start Shabbos at Shkia, and there's no frum Jew that doesn't end Shabbos at Tzeis HaKechavim. Now, I'm calling Tzeis HaKechavim 72. I'm about to get to why it could be less than 72, but that is that range. Okay, that explains the range. Now,
what was the reasoning?
Yeah, go ahead.
What was the reasoning for different shitas?
Okay, there are two Gemaras. And one of them seems to describe Shkia as being our Shkia, and says Gecham coming after, and the other one describes it like Rabbeinu Tam. And the question is which Gemara has, and then what the pshat in the other Gemara is. Like, what is the other Gemara trying to say? Yeah, but there are two Gemaras, and one of the Rishonim said this is the Pashtas, and this means X, Y, and Z. There's a Tosfos in that are long. They take hours to learn through. It's very, very, very complicated trying to reconcile all the Shitas, but that's what's going on. That's where it started from. It wasn't just like, hey, I think. It wasn't like that. It was based on different Gemaras. And one of the biggest challenges when we're learning halacha is to take all the Gemaras that describe that halacha all over Shas and to try to reconcile them into one meaningful shita. And we ended up with two shitas, the Ga'ainim and Rabbeinu Tam, and then we put both shitas together.
We don't paskin like either one.
We don't paskin like either one. There are some who say that make Ikar Hadin. It's this way. I'm not getting into that now. Okay. So that's the starting point. Okay. Now I disrespectfully asked Mrs. Hollander to not talk because I was panicking. I apologize for that. But she brought up right away asking me where in the world. She was not like where in the world, not like that. It was like where on the globe we're talking about. And the reason that she said that is because she knows a little bit of a secret about the world. Okay, and here's the secret that she knows. She knows that the world, the globe, doesn't turn the same speed. It's a very, very hard thing to imagine, right? That's what you're talking about, right? That the globe, imagine the basketball, okay, the globe, it turns. That's what makes day and night. What makes day and night? What makes day and night is which part of the earth is facing the sun. So if the sun is here, so this part of the earth is in daytime and this part of the earth is in nighttime, and then it turns. And now this part of this, and when I was in Eretz Yisrael last week, I was in a different part of the globe, so it was daytime at a different time of the day, right? The thing is that when the earth turns, different parts of the earth turn at different speeds.
Because of the shape.
Nobody believes me when I tell that to them, but it's a fact. It's a fact. Okay, different parts of the earth turn at different speeds. Why? The reason is, I'll explain to you. Do you know why? Okay, let me explain to you why. Because the earth has a wide part and it has a narrow part. The top and the bottom of the circle is small, and the middle of the circle is wide. But the entire thing is moving the same distance. So that means that in an hour, the globe is moving from here to here, let's say.
No, I mean, it has to do with the distance from the Earth to the Sun.
Yeah.
No, not the Earth to the Sun. It has to do with the fact that the Earth is spinning, but when something spins that has a shape like this, the smaller part of it has much less distance to cover. You understand what I'm saying?
The
inner side
rising
and the outer
and
side.
the setting of the sun is different, different parts of the earth based on the distance from the sun and the fact that we're tilted. I
both.
think it's similar to what you're saying. It's the same.
Yeah,
sun is
the
same
tilted,
point.
the fact that the earth is tilted does make a difference, but this is the Iker thing. The Iker thing is that when you're in the wide part of when you're around the equator, so that means that in 1 hour, a much larger distance turned.
Right.
So that means it was turning much faster. So that means that Shkia was turning into Tzeitzek Achavim much faster. That was
Also, the disparity of where the earth is from the sun doesn't change as much because
Right,
it's,
right.
It's
I can't do both.
I explain it,
Not
but
tonight.
it's the similar. This distance remains the same as opposed to the opposite ends of the earth. It's gonna. I can't
It's physics.
put it into words.
It's a lot of math and a
So in any event, I went through this when we did the Birchas Hachama a few years ago. We're trying to figure this all out.
a few years ago.
But
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we did the Birchas Hachama. We actually blessed the moon on Erev Pesach, remember?
Yeah.
Not the moon, the sun. We did the Birchas Hachama. We do every 28 years.
Yeah,
So
but it wasn't a few years ago.
It was a few years ago. Yeah.
7, 8
No, it wasn't. It was 16 years
It
ago.
wasn't.
No.
That was yesterday.
Oh, maybe
Whatever.
you're right.
Guys, I know exactly when it was.
It
I had
was,
a
you're
broken
right.
engagement right before, and it was 7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't go because I was in my
It was
bed.
Erev Pesach. Maybe it just
It was
feels like it
16
was
and a half
yesterday.
years ago.
Wow, that means it's coming up again.
It was our anniversary today, and it was
Okay.
16 years. So.
Okay, Mazel Tov.
16 and a half years.
Okay, in any event,
We're halfway
this
there.
started a whole revolution in halacha that leads to several big questions that are like unanswered questions here. But the short version of it is that people of the stature of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, him included, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Rav Henkin, these great tzaddikim, the first major poskim to come to these shores, took their own measurements for how long it takes until 3 stars come out from Shkia, and they came to the conclusion that it's a number that usually is around 50 minutes. That usually in 50 minutes, what's supposed to happen, according to Rabbeinu Tam, in 72 minutes, happens in this country at 50 minutes. Okay, there are several big questions on this, but that is what Ramosha held. Some people, because Shmiras Shabbos is so chamer, and because we're dealing with a Dairaisa, they err on the side of 60 minutes. Knows, even if they're going with the concept of Ramosha, they do. That's why you'll hear some people say they do an hour after Shkia.
50 plus.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But 50 is like,
50 in the entire country.
well, he was talking about New York. I don't think it changes much. I don't think it changes much in the country. What? Sometimes it's a little less.
No, it depends
Sometimes
on
it's
the
a little
season.
less.
It could be less
I don't
than
think.
more.
I don't think it comes to more. I don't think so,
that
but
would
it
be
could
an
be. It's
issue.
just you have to check. The truth is that if you look on my Zmanim, that Ramosha's Shita, it's not always 50 minutes after Shkia. It fluctuates.
It's less sometimes. I think
Yeah,
it's never
it's
more
less
than
sometimes.
50.
We have this a lot, like we were doing, I know like Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, this comes up a lot when we're doing the Zmanim, like when Yom Kippur is over and things like that. And we're like, wow, that's early, because depending on the angle and, the angle, the tilt, the turn, depending on different things, it's different amounts of time. But in any event, so that's where it comes from, that people who do like Reb Moshe, people who follow Reb Moshe, do 50 minutes, and it's a perfectly acceptable shita. In other words, if your family says we do 50 minutes, in America, most from people don't do less than 50 minutes. Okay? In Eretz Yisrael, however, there are people who do even less than 50 minutes, because there it goes even faster in Eretz Yisrael. There are people who do 50. I've heard of people that do 35 minutes in
You
Eretz
watch
Yisrael.
the sun literally
Yeah.
set
Yeah.
in minutes in
Yeah.
Israel.
So in Eretz Yisrael, some people do it faster, but in America, we're not going to get into Eretz Yisrael. I'm not familiar so much with the psukim there, because it's not so negay. When I'm in Eretz Yisrael, I follow the American way, because that's what my minhag, and I just don't want to mess around with it. But when I was in yeshiva, my Rosh Yeshiva used to make a shalosh shudas, and we didn't end up davening Marim until about 100 minutes after Shkia. So it was never an issue. It never came up. But even now, when I was there now, I waited until after Marim. I made sure it was 72 minutes after Shkia. I didn't assume that the yeshiva there was being makbid, because it's in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe they're not makbid. But for myself, I made sure that it was 72 minutes. It turned out it was pretty close when they made Havdalah. It was pretty close to 72.
Where Rabbeinu Tam lived, Did it take 72 minutes there?
So
or
that's where
just
things
didn't
get-
have the math.
That's where things get complicated because it's not just about where Rabbeinu Tam lived. Rabbeinu Tam was trying to explain a Gemara. The Gemara was written in Bavel. Bavel is Iraq. Iraq is very close to Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
So it's very complicated. It's very hard to figure out how Rabbeinu Tam got to 72 minutes around Eretz Yisrael. That's what I mean. I wasn't expecting you pushing me. Okay, I was expecting to keep this simple.
Sorry.
Okay, but the
Fascinating.
yeah, but the but
and they give you so many
So
Zmanim.
many
Yeah.
rounds and all
13 and a half
the-
minutes during the equinox, and it's 16 and 7 eighths minutes, and 18 minutes and 13 and a half minutes proportional. It's
yeah,
fascinating.
Ashreinu Matov Chelkeinu. You know,
That there
it's
were
a
Jews that sat and
it's
did
a,
this.
yeah, and still are,
Yeah.
and still are. You know,
Interesting.
still are.
It doesn't
It's
say Ramesha.
it's just magnificent that people made
before-
expertise about this. I have a book at home called, on Zmanim, a book in English on Zmanim. It's just magnificent, the amount of work and collating shitas and figuring out Gemaras just to figure out what Hashem wants. Not just what Hashem wants, when Hashem wants. You know, it's
So
incredible.
before my Zmanim, like
Yeah.
earlier in the century, did you just look outside? I mean,
No.
what did our forebears
We didn't.
know?
Rav Moshe we would go on the roof, and figure it out. But for us, we didn't do that. People went with an average. Either people did 50 minutes, did 50 minutes. People did 60 minutes, did 60 minutes.
I mean, we
That's
still
what-
pretty much do that.
That's what people did. Or people had printed calendars. They did have printed calendars
Right.
for a year at a time with pretty detailed.
And it's
You always
predictive.
had those.
that's
Either those big wall calendars. Remember?
What's the little?
Right. There's the
Yeah.
luach.
Yeah.
The Ezra's Torah luach.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what they did.
We always had a
They
magnet on the fridge.
they had the different zmanim, very very detailed. But it's convenient to be able to have my zmanim, but we've had zmanim before that. Right, you have to know who you hold by. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's what's going
So we
on.
don't know what
Now,
he was saying when he was
many,
talking
it's very difficult. It's very difficult. There are some solutions. There are things out there. It's like, for
Explain.
example, I was looking 2-3 weeks ago. I was reading the Kaivetz Halachos that Rabbi Kleiman wrote of the Psukim of Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky. So he's like, this Zmanim thing is a little complicated, so I'm just going to give you the basics. And it's 2 pages like this with like tiny font, like the entire sugya, the questions, the issues, the different shitas. It was magnificent, absolutely magnificent. You feel like, Torah still thrives in Klal Yisrael. It's incredible. So that's where Rav Moshe comes from. So there are people that have a chumrah that, even though logically it seems that Tzeis HaKachavim is by around, let's say, 50, 60 minutes, and it doesn't seem to be at 72, but there are people that still say, be that as it may, Rabbeinu Tam said 72, so we're doing 72. One of those people that said that was Rav Aaron Cutler. Rav Aaron Cutler was a Rosh Hashiva in Lakewood in America, and he was from the premier people that brought Torah to America. So his shita is very, very, very chashuv to us. In my family, for example, if I asked my father what he holds, he would say that he really holds like Reb Moshe, but in honor of Rav Aaron Cutler, we're makbid on 72. That's where it comes from. It's like a covet for the Gadol Adar. We're makbid on 72. My father was a Lakewood guy. His Rebbeim were Talmidim of Rav Aaron Cutler. So that would do 72. And a lot of the yeshiva world does 72, not May Ikar Hadin. There are some people that are makbid even May Ikar Hadin, 72, but most people would consider 72 a chumrah. This is very important. A child is sick and you're waiting to drive to the drugstore. It's not pikuach nefesh, but a child is sick, child's burning up with fever. So maybe okay, if you realized it Shabbos afternoon, you should send the guy to the drugstore. But if it's a few minutes before the end of Shabbos, you're waiting just a few minutes. It's not dangerous. As experienced mothers, okay, I know this fever, I know this kid, I know this situation. We could wait a few minutes, but when do you wait until? So then you would say, no, we're waiting until Ramosha. We're not waiting until 72. Things like that. So there are reasons to know that 72 is a chumrah, But for most people, I'm not speaking for every shita, but for most people to do either 50 or 60 is their ikar adin, and if they do 72, they're doing it as a chumrah.
How
Okay.
does that reconcile with when the men daven Ma'ariv?
So
It's a curious question.
no, so men daven Ma'ariv usually at 50 minutes after Shkia.
Right.
So the idea is that we're saying Kriya Shema, which is a Daraisa, And for most people, Shabbos is over at 50 minutes, but we just start Ma'ariv then. There's two reasons, really. One is because we're saying Kriya Shema, which is D'oraisa. Okay, people could say Kriya Shema later also. They could say over Kriya Shema. We don't like to do that on Ma'ariv, to tell people to say over Kriya Shema. We do it Friday night a lot, especially in the summer. But the other thing is that with certain things, there was the Hakpada in the Paiskim. This comes up in Yantif sometimes. You can ask your husband. We go through a lot of times these kind of things, dealing with the second day Yantif and things like that, that when you start Ma'ariv, people assume Shabbos is over.
Right.
So therefore, we start Ma'ariv at 50.
So the men are dominating.
We used
but
to-
the wives are home waiting till 72 sometimes.
Yeah.
Shabbos to be out. So what does that mean? The husbands are take Shabbos
No.
out.
They don't do
earlier?
malacha.
No, they're not doing malacha.
No, they just daven.
They're not doing malacha.
davening the
They
week
daven.
they married.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it's not. The issue here that we're concerned with is malacha. That's the issue that we're concerned with. Look, we daven Ma'ariv early in the day. We daven Ma'ariv sometimes right after Shkia. Technically, if someone davens Mincha before Plaga Mincha, you could have Ma'ariv right after, like when we make early Shabbos. Ma'ariv could be davened early, but the issue is doing malacha. So, but we wait until the end of Shabbos, at least according to Rabbi Moshe, and then we do that. I think Yeshiva maybe does 55 minutes or 60. So it could be they do it a little
Blue
later.
Ridge does 50,
We
right?
used to do 60 here. We went down to 50 eventually.
Blue Ridge is 50. I think it's the only
Yeah.
thing in town.
No, but we do 50.
Oh, 50?
We do 50, and the Shtibel also does 50.
They moved even earlier?
I think they're earlier. I don't know.
No, it can't be earlier than 50.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
It's not great. It could be they do. It could be. Okay, let's move on. Let's
Yeah, we have higher elevation. The
Huh,
sun's
right, higher
Yeah, could be.
elevation, closer to us.
We do have.
Okay, let's move on. It's getting late, and I want to cover the Tosfos Shabbos piece of this. Okay, so this is just an explanation of the Zmanim. I didn't come here tonight in explaining this with halachas of Zmanim as much as just to have some clarity on Zmanim, which I think is valuable. When you're dealing with these kind of things, it's important for us that everything not feel arbitrary. And when there's a method to it, and you see there's a system, and people worked hard on it, and there are questions, and there are cheshbainos, it adds. The Chazon Ish always used to say that one of the ways to build our emunah is to learn halacha, because when you learn halacha, you're like, wow, there's a lot there. It adds a certain. Yeah, exactly. You said it, but yeah, exactly. Okay. Tosfos Shabbos. So the concept of Tosfos Shabbos is that Shabbos is from, let's say, Shkia on Erev Shabbos till Tzeis HaKechavim on Shabbos, but there's an idea of adding a little bit to Shabbos. That's the concept of adding a little bit, Tosfos Shabbos, adding a little bit to Shabbos. We learn out the concept of adding a little bit to Shabbos, and for tonight I'm specifically discussing adding earlier. Now, I want to explain why I'm discussing that to a room full of people that light neiros and are makabel Shabbos when they light. So you do a much better job than the men in Tosfos Shabbos, because when you light your neiros, generally you're makabel Shabbos. However, there are two reasons that and originally I in my mind I crossed it out, like we're not going to cover this. There are other pieces that I wasn't planning on doing in this shir, like what to do if you're in a community that only has one shul, things like, because we're not in a community that only has one shul, anymore, Baruch Hashem. So, Kain Yerbu. So I'm not doing, even though it's nageh a little bit, camps, bungalow colonies, but I thought that we should move forward and do adlakas neiros. But I did want to do this sugya of Tosfos Shabbos, because first of all, every once in a while a person does make a tanai. Let's say you're eating somewhere else, so you'll light and drive somewhere. There are times that someone would make a tanai that they're not being makabel Shabbos when they light, and you should still be aware of the dinim of Tosfos Shabbos. And second of all, we have kids in our family, even daughters that are maybe not going to shul, and the mother lit, and the daughter is still in the shower, and it's important to know when Shabbos starts for them, because we're not just taking care of ourselves here. So that's why I thought it was a valuable thing to know. So the interesting drasha, the source of the concept of Tosfos Shabbos is in the pasuk that talks about Yom Kippur. Okay? It says about Yom Kippur, when it's talking about keeping Yom Kippur, it says, V'inisem es nafshei seichem, right? So that's the 5 inuyim that we do. We don't eat, we don't drink, we don't wear leather, all those things, right? And it says, B'tisha l'chodesh, on the 9th of the month, ba'erev, in the evening. The 9th of the month in the evening. I thought that Yom Kippur is the 10th of the month. So it says in the evening, and it was after the 9th of the month. So why don't you just say I'll count myself. Right, like why don't you just say that? That's the 10th. So Chazal understand from there that there's a drop of Yom Kippur on the 9th. How is that? Because you started Yom Kippur a few minutes early. It's a remez to start Yom Kippur a few minutes early. I found a few years ago a remez even specifically by Shabbos. This is an Orach Chaim HaKadosh. I think you'll appreciate this. We say by Kiddush on Shabbos day, we say V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es HaShabbos, right? So V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es HaShabbos. Klal Yisrael kept Shabbos. La'asos es HaShabbos, to make Shabbos. What does it mean to make Shabbos? I know, like, it's Thursday, I have to make Shabbos, but that's what it means? What does La'asos es HaShabbos, to make Shabbos? We observe Shabbos. We're Shomer Shabbos. We're Zeicher Shabbos. What does it mean that we make Shabbos? So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh has like 25 explanations. But one of his explanations is that when we add to Shabbos, we're literally creating Shabbos. When we observe Shabbos exactly in the right time, we're not creating anything, we're observing it, we're leaning into it. Like, for example, when you make early Shabbos, right? So you took a chunk of Friday and you made it into Shabbos. That's amazing. And it's amazing that Hashem gave us that power. That we, little us, can create Shabbos. Okay, we have to have some Shabbos to start with, but we could pull it earlier and later. That's amazing.
I was always wondered about that because it also says in the Torah you shouldn't add, right?
Right, but the point is over here, first of all, because of the drasha by Yom Kippur, Hashem is telling us that we could do that, and also because of this point, that we're not adding we're not saying Shabbos will be Shabbos and Tuesday. We're not saying that. We're saying Shabbos, we're just pulling the ends a little bit. Okay?
And that's not considered.
That's not considered being Moisef. Moisef is to be Moisef a mitzvah, or to be Moisef a part of a mitzvah, like
add a new mitzvah.
Like to add another box for the tefillin. Like there's 4 boxes in the Shalresh, to add a 5th box. That would be Bal Taisif. Or to just create a Yantif.
But wearing tefillin all day is okay because it's
right,
not.
right. It's just extending the mitzvah, or even holding. There were the Gemara describes that there were certain tzaddikim that used to hold their lulav and esrog the whole day on the sukkahs. They did it a lot, the mitzvah, but they did want that one mitzvah a lot. There are certain times that Bal Taisif could be extending a mitzvah, like if you sit in the sukkah an extra day, things
You
like
can't make
that.
a bracha.
Yeah.
Well, if someone extended Shabbos all of Sunday, that would be.
Yeah, that might be, yeah.
What do you mean? Isn't there stories about people that kept till Tuesday?
Yeah, that's what Gabi, like Gabi Malacha maybe, but Amshanav is like a different, it's a different mitzvah. We don't criticize Amshanav, you should know that. We don't criticize them, we don't do that, but we don't criticize them. We understand that there's Hashem, like,
I have no clue what Hashem does and doesn't do. I just know that when he says they make Havdalah on Tuesday.
They're L'maylam and Azman. They don't work with the regular Zmanim.
A lot of Hasidim don't work with
They're on a small level, but the Amshan, it's not Amshan, it's just the Amshan of a Rebbe.
Oh, okay.
It's not all Amshan of a Hasidim. They're not all eating their Afi Kaiman and Lag Baimer.
Hasidim do have different times. The fact that they daven mincha,
well, they're holding
they do have
I
different.
used to think they were
They
crazy,
do
they
have
were
different
strong, but
Zmanim.
Then someone once explained to me that they hold differently in Zmanim.
Yeah, they hold different. They hold different Zmanim. Okay, in any event, what's Negeh Halacha L'Maisa is that we are supposed to add to Shabbos. We're supposed to add to Shabbos, both on Shabbos and on Yontif. It's not just Shabbos.
Do we have to feel guilty? It's not actually 18 minutes.
So first of all, I don't like a question that starts with, do we have to feel guilty?
But I'm always like, well, I still did it 10 minutes before Shkia, even if it wasn't 18.
So it's not about feeling guilty. Figure out what the right thing is to do and do it.
Oh, figure out the right thing to do and try to do it?
Okay, that's good.
Trying is much more
Figure out the right thing. I stand corrected. Figure out the right thing to do and try to do it.
Well, supposedly the right thing is 18
Okay?
minutes.
Well, let's discuss that. Let's discuss that, okay? So the thing is like this. It's true that the recommended adding is between 15 and 20 minutes. We're nayig 18 minutes. They say between 15 and 20 minutes. Some people say a half hour, but we do Hadlakas Neiros 18 minutes before Shkia. There are reasons for that. I'm not getting into. There's certain Shitas Rishonim that we're trying
also, they do 15.
They do they?
Growing up in Brooklyn, the Hasidic Zmanim, where's that?
Or earlier.
No. It's 15 minutes before Shkia.
Oh, 15. Oh, it could be.
And there's still 40 minutes they do?
Yeah, so they do 40 minutes before Shkia in Yerushalayim. So the siren goes off 40 minutes before Shkia. But that's a recommended amount to give like a chunk of time. However, that is not the Ikar Hadin. I'll tell you a very interesting story. There's a letter in the Igros Moshe written by Rav Moshe Feinstein. It It's one of the most unbelievable Musar shmuzin that you could imagine getting. You know, okay, you think of reading a tshuva sefer about halacha, that's like, what Musar could there be? I'm going to tell you halacha now. That's the most unbelievable Musar sefer. Apparently, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was driving in a car, was being driven to yeshiva from his house 13 minutes before Shkia. And apparently somebody saw him and called him to give him Musar that a gadol hadar like him was seen driving after Adlakas Neiros. And he writes a short letter back to that person. And he writes, like, I don't know, like, I think some gadol hadar might write back, like, please mind your own business. I know the halacha better than you, you know, or not answer, you know. But Ramesha does this. Ramesha says, I want to compliment you. It's just so commendable that you saw a need to give teichacha, and you got up and you went to the person and you gave him teichacha, and I'm that person. He's like, that's how he starts the letter. Then he says, it happens to be that teichacha is completely wrong. And then he proves that it's absolutely no problem at all to be in a car 13 minutes before Shkia. And that number, 13 minutes, is very important. I'll tell you why in a minute, okay? And then he says, listen to this. But because you thought it was an issue, even though it's wrong, as I explained to you, it's 100% okay, la'alachi, because all different things about what things look like when people do things and when you have to be machmir and everything. He said, absolutely okay what I did. But because you thought it wasn't okay, hareini mekabel al atzmi b'li neder, I'm being mekabel from now on to never be in a car after Adlakas Neiros. And thank you again for the teichach. Is that not astonishing? It's like Bika Amcha Yisrael, right? It's unbelievable. Not only does he thank the person for the teichach, but he accepts it even as he's telling the person that is absolutely wrong. He says, but if somebody could think that, I'm not doing it anymore.
Like Marasayan.
Yeah, but he says in the letter that it's not Marasayan. But even so, he's going to be sensitive.
Who will come
you know,
give the musar and get the answer
And get the clarity.
Yeah, interesting, no? But then he said, but the reason this is important is because there is a minimum amount of Tosfos Shabbos. You have to add a certain amount. So that means this is important because if someone is in the shower, you can't go up to the wire because then you didn't add to Shabbos. And you're mechuyev to add to Shabbos.
Also, our clocks are not 100% accurate.
That's a good reason also. That's a good reason also. But what is the minimum? So, Rosh Shmuel Kamenetsky says 5 minutes. The Avnei Nezer and apparently the Balatanya say 4 minutes. Okay? Reb Moshe held, along with many Achronim, 2 minutes. How do I know that that's what he held? Because he writes, I was in the car 13 minutes before Shkia, which gives me still 11 minutes to do Malacha. Now, I know how to do a little math. I figured out that Ramesha holds that you only need 2 minutes of Tosfos Shabbos. So even though it's better to add, it is better to add, you know, if you can add a bunch of time, and when women do Adlakas Neiros and they're machmir, that's fine. But it does put in perspective your question about 10 minutes, right? It does put, it's better to try to make it to 18, but, you know.
Money or whatever.
You still more than 2.
But if you don't know 72 minutes, it looks like you're okay.
but
Yeah.
You do the same thing.
so like really it's Shabbos 2 minutes before Shkia. So if there's a man in the house who wasn't Makabel Shabbos and you find a light switch on or a flame on or whatever, something.
If he wasn't
like
Makabel
that.
Shabbos, after that time you can't do it. In fact, Rav Shmuel is so machmir about the 5 minutes before Shkia. This I never knew until tonight. I appreciate that we had to share because I always go over my notes and everything, but I always look up new things to make sure I get everything right. And I saw that Rav Kleinman asked Rav Shmuel what would happen if a woman didn't light candles yet, and it became 4 minutes before Shkia.
So don't
She
like.
said not to light.
And he said, my father would have, Rav Shmuel said about his father, Rav Yaakov, my father would have said she shouldn't light.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, that's a strong statement. That is a strong statement.
Okay, we still have Ramesha.
Yeah, you have Ramesha to rely on, and I would rely on Ramesha. I would rely on
But if
Ramesha.
you're
We
2
do-
minutes and you can't?
Yeah, you're doing thing you shouldn't.
So really, like if people are getting somewhere for Shabbos and they're running late and like
We always
talks
say
about
Shkia, but
like
now we're
2
saying that
minutes?
it's
Right.
If it's 2
It's
minutes
not the
before, they
same
should not-
chumrah. It's not a chiyuv misa. It's not the same chumrah as Shabbos itself. It's a mitzvah to add on to Shabbos. So it's not the same level of urgency.
Like if you're driving someplace and you're getting there within those 2 minutes, it's
It's a problem. It's a problem.
It's the same problem as if
It's not the same, but it's almost the same.
If there's somewhere to pull
It
over,
definitely,
that's safe.
definitely, you should have been on the phone with a Rav a half hour before that, figuring it out. We've had it here in Waterbury many times. I think I talked about it a few weeks ago.
Many
Times, yeah.
If you're a 2-minute drive away, you park your car and you walk.
Yeah.
That's also
We've
true.
had
I'm saying
that.
there has to be a safe place.
I've
to
had
put
it.
the
I've
car.
had guests
Stuck
for
on
Shabbos.
the highway,
That,
you continue driving.
well, that you should call someone.
Oh, right.
Depending,
Yeah,
you know.
we did.
Yeah.
We got stuck behind. It was Erev Yom Kippur. We were stuck behind a huge accident, and we couldn't pull over anywhere. We were in the middle of nowhere, and they said keep going. And once you get where you're going, you should eat also. And we didn't start Yom Kippur until 72 that year.
Mm.
It was like 3 hours. We were just sitting there. We couldn't even go on the shoulder because there was no shoulder.
Okay, so someone who lights neiros, obviously, lighting neiros is enough. You're Makabel Shabbos. It's automatic. Okay, in fact, if you're not going to be Makabel Shabbos, we will learn about that when we do Adlakas Neiros, how to not be Makabel Shabbos when you're lighting neiros. But for a woman, it's automatic. For a man, it is not. Man lights neiros is not automatically a Kabbalah Shabbos. Okay, but let's say you are not lighting, or let's say your son or
If a man
daughter.
is lighting the candles, he's not Makabel
Right,
Shabbos?
right. It's not automatic.
Wow.
It's not automatic. Okay? So how are you Makabel Shabbos? How are men Makabel Shabbos? And even teenage girls, let's say, that are not lighting, if you're not Chabad, you know, and they're not lighting, how are they Makabel Shabbos to do the Tosfos Shabbos? How do you start Shabbos?
What about not teenage? Why teenage?
Over
Why
bat
not
mitzvah.
Yeah, yeah.
Over bar mitzvah.
Anyone
Yeah.
older would.
Yeah, it's something to teach them to do. So first of all, the best thing to do is to express it, to say I'm now being Makabel Shabbos. You know, I'm being Makabel Shabbos. You know, like so you express it. So then again, for you it's not Nageya, you're lighting. But you know, for teenagers, for kids, whatever it is, to say I'm now being Makabel Shabbos. Okay. I never did this in shul. I really, really, really want to do this. One of my rules in shul for the last 20 years, one of the Aseres Hadiros of the shul is don't be weird. And that held me back from doing some weird things. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to hold me back forever.
As you get older, you have more permission to be weird.
But I want that there should be a clap on the bima when it's 2 minutes before Shkia, because sometimes it's the middle of Kabbalah Shabbos, or there should be some announcement to be Makabel Shabbos.
Some people are going to think, oh, we should say Yalav Yavo.
Right.
No, I don't think
No,
it's
so we can
so
announce
weird.
Kabbalah Shabbos. There are places, I've heard of places that do
You're
that.
not being macabre if you're middle of a day. You weren't macabre.
No, not necessarily.
So the
Unless
thing
you say-
is, no. So I'll
People are putting their
tell
keys
you.
back in
So
there.
if you are saying Kabbalah Shabbos, you're Makabel Shabbos when you say Boyi Chala, Boyi Chala. That's when you're Makabel Shabbos. Which would be beautiful if you could have your teenagers lined up in a row on the couch saying Kabbalah Shabbos. That would be beautiful. but
Some
and,
do that
still
very
being in the
quickly,
shower.
Yeah.
very early.
right, that's why I'm joking about it.
I usually tell my kids when I say my girls when I say good Shabbos, and they say good Shabbos back.
That's
and
beautiful.
then Good Shabbos.
That's beautiful. That's good.
That's I'm always like, oh,
Yeah.
someone left the light on. Did anyone not say good
I know,
Shabbos?
but that's
I
like,
said
like
good Shabbos
for
back.
them.
Yeah.
Always put a little kid that doesn't know. 'Cause it's really not Shabbos.
Anyway, we'll talk about that. That's yeah. Oh, that's true. It's not Shabbos
Before
yet, for sure. Yeah.
Before Shkia.
Yeah, you could even tell the kid. I would even explain to the kid that it's not Shabbos for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
So-
very confusing.
Ikabar.
Tell a 4-year-old it's not Shabbos for you, so you can turn on the light. But I just said Shabbos.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
don't worry, they'll just add it to the list of confusing
They'll just
things.
do it when they go to
But in
bed.
any event, if you're saying Kabbalah Shabbos, you're Makabel Shabbos, so you say Bo Yichala, Bo Yichala. If you didn't say L'chadaidi, but you say Mizmor Shir L'Yom Shabbos, some people say a very shortened Kabbalah Shabbos, they just say Mizmor Shir L'Yom Shabbos, you're Makabel Shabbos with that. If you skip the whole Kabbalah Shabbos, but you're by Ma'ariv in Shul, and you're there when they say Baruch Hu for Ma'ariv, so then you're Makabel Shabbos for that. If someone is davening Ma'ariv at home, of course they're Makabel Shabbos when they say Ma'ariv. But that's the basic halacha. It applies equally to men and to women, and that's it. That's the halacha of Tosfos Shabbos. It is something to be aware of. It's something that we don't pay enough attention to. It's not like discussed so much, but it is something to be aware of. I went through even just tonight, just rechecking my notes and everything. I went through that tshuva from Rabbi Moshe again tonight, and I was blown away again. Even though it was like the 10th time I've seen it. Every time I'm like, I cannot believe he wrote this. And I went through the whole of Kleinman because the last time I taught these halachas, that sefer hadn't come out yet. So I went through all of his halachas to see if they matched with what my notes said. And this is a serious thing, this Tosfos Shabbos. And I have also Rabbi Reuben from Eretz Yisrael. He put out a sefer called Hilchos Shabbos, which has also is like a likud of Hilchos Shabbos from all of the Paiskim. And that I did have last time. I have things quoted from it. And this is a serious thing. We should try to be Makabel Shabbos much earlier. And if not, at least 5, 4, or 2 minutes before Shabbos. Okay, I think we have a Malav Malka to attend.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Next one.
sure.
For a younger kid, is there an age, like, let's say you bench stuff and you're like, oh, I forgot, to shut the light in the fridge. Is there, like, if they're not davening yet, so then it's not an issue for sure?
Right.
Like, even the 8, 9-year-olds?
Right.
Up until 2 minutes before Shabbos.
As long as it's not within 2 minutes before Shabbos.
Right. No, but if
Yeah.
it's, like, within the 18.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also, sorry, one question. People who are Makabel Shabbos even earlier, what's, just, like, because it's beautiful? Like, I'm saying it, like, if we're saying 2, 4, 5, 18, 20, like...
Right. I guess the idea is like to add a chashuv chunk of time.
So
Like
the
we're
more you add,
honoring
the better.
Shabbos by adding a chashuv. Rav Moshe even has a tshuva, not this tshuva, but a different tshuva where he talks about making early Shabbos in the summer. And one of the reasons that he encourages it is because it's a covet for Shabbos to make Shabbos earlier.
I was wondering if it counts, if we're just doing it for like our convenience.
Yeah, that's the back and forth. We'll talk. That's a conversation.
We count like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a conversation.
So that's the best thing. The men leave to Sean, you still have more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
That's
a good tvach. We're not going to be on. I don't think we're going to be on for the next 2 weeks. I think we're going to have the third week. Next week is Shabbos Chanukah. The Shabbos after, I think I'm in Queens for Shabbos. So if anything changes, I'll let you know.
Okay. I'll try to
So we'll
post
change
it
the
earlier
schedule.
in the week. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
Thank
Hatzlacha.
you. Don't forget your phone.